Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video I'm going to share how I fixed a dropped stitch that I noticed several years after knitting this item on a mitten. I've actually fixed it now because I'm filming this the day after I filmed the tutorial, but I took this to a workshop a couple of months ago and I noticed that there was a dropped stitch. So at the time I just put a stitch marker in it, one of those bulb stitch markers, to keep it safe, and then I thought I will film it as a tutorial because I no longer have the yarn. So it was a purple stitch that dropped about here. I no longer have the yarn for it, so I'll show you how I fixed it. I can't even see where it was now. I can see if I look on the inside because I can see the ends are woven, but it was around this area. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you're new here, my name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns. I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through our website YarnAddict.co.uk. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Now, I filmed this video yesterday, and I realised after I finished filming it that I'd forgotten to put my microphone on. I haven't filmed a tutorial for a while. I'm still getting back into the swing of things after Christmas. I'm filming this during my first week back in work after a 3-week break. And even though I filmed several videos this week, they've all been in this room, so remembering to put my microphone on is quite easy, but I forgot downstairs when I was filming this tutorial. So because of the way I sit when I film, I am closer to the camera, so hopefully the sound is okay, but I do apologize. I will make sure next time I remember to put my mic on. So let's have a look at this mitten. It's a bit difficult to see where the hole is because the mitten is quite dark. It is down here. It's unraveled 1, 2, 3 rounds maybe, and it's the stitches here. So when I discovered this, I immediately put the stitch on a stitch marker. Now I don't know what's happened, whether when I knitted it I just caught a strand of the yarn rather than the whole stitch, or whether, because it doesn't look like the stitch is broken or like cut or caught on anything. So I reckon what's happened is that I may have just caught like 1 or 2 strands of the stitch and it's come undone over time, because these mittens haven't been used. They're purely for workshop reasons, mainly because they don't have a thumb. I knitted this mitten when I knitted it. I got to right up here, remembered I hadn't put the afterthought thumb in, ripped it back and did the same thing again, and then thought I can't be bothered to take it back. It's not my size, so I thought it's not going to fit me anyway. I've already knitted the other one with the thumb, so I thought I just need it so I can take a photograph, and I think I got my daughter to model it like that. So the one with the thumb was on top and the other one was underneath, and she managed to get her hand in without the thumb. So it's never had a thumb, so that's why it's never been used. It's purely for demonstration purposes when I teach a workshop. So let's see what we're going to do. The first thing we need to do is to work out what equipment we need. Now I don't have this purple yarn, but I do have the same yarn, which is Rauma, which is Norwegian yarn company, Filet. That's what I knitted this in. I have some of the grey. The yarn isn't going to be seen, so as long as it can be washed in the same way, it doesn't really matter. As this is just a sample, it doesn't really matter anyway, because I'm not going to be washing it. Unless I spilled something on it at a workshop. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this marker out. Now before you do that, it's a good idea just to pull on the stitch a bit, just to make the stitch as big as you can. And then the first thing we're going to do, and it's difficult because this is quite dark, so I'm going to choose the smaller bit of this. I'm using a double-handed crochet hook. One side is 3.5mm and the other side is 2. I can't remember what size I knitted with, but probably 3.25. It's a good idea to use a crochet hook that's smaller than the size you knitted with. So luckily this is a bit where it's just the purple. If it was a section where it's stranded colour work, then you have to make sure that you keep the stranding correct. But this is at the bit between the cuff and the main colour work where it's just purple. So that was very, very lucky, because otherwise it would have been a lot more difficult to do. So the pick up drop stitch is using a crochet hook. Make sure the hook part of your hook is pointing upwards. If it's pointing downwards, then when you pull the strand through, it will twist the stitch and you have to take your hook out and put it back in again. So make sure your hook is pointing upwards and the stitch should be like an open archway with this hook pointing upwards, and then work out which is the next strand. So if you need to stick your finger in where the hole is, that's the next strand. I go under that strand and I pull it through the stitch, and to do that you may have to like wiggle your crochet hook and turn it a bit sideways. So that's the first row. Then there's another row. Do the same thing here, and then I'm going to go up one more row just to make it like nice and snug. I'm wondering actually, because just trying to think if I increased after this plain section, because I don't understand what's happened to this stitch up here. But anyway, not going to worry about that. I'm going to go, do I need to go one more stitch up? Yes, I'm going to go one more row up. Now I'm coming into the colorwork section, so I just have to make sure that I'm not taking the green, the grey yarn. Right, let me just pull on that stitch a bit to make sure it's nice and big, and then I'm just going to go into that purple strand. There we go. So now we're right up here so we don't end up with a hole. Pull on the stitch a bit just to make it a bit loose, and then I'm going to grab my yarn that I'm going to weave it in with, put it through the sewing needle, take the sewing needle through the stitch, just put the sewing needle through the stitch and pull the yarn out. So the yarn is now threaded through the stitch. Now depending on what kind of sewing needle you use, I like this type. I don't know what brand this is, but Knit Pro do similar ones, and Lantern Moon do similar ones. They have a big loop at the bottom. The Knit Pro ones and the Lantern Moon ones are not quite as big, and I prefer those. The good thing with this is that I can get both strands through. If you're using a regular sewing needle that you can't fit 2 strands through, just do this 1 strand at a time. It doesn't really matter. So now I'm going to work out where I've taken this stitch up to, and then go through the fabric to the back, and then just give it a bit of a pull. So let me just feel where I put it through. So that's where I put it through, just there where my nail is on my left thumb. So now we're going to turn it inside out. So before you do this, you just want to make sure that you don't get a hole there. So now we're going to turn this inside out, and then I'm going to separate these 2 threads. That's my stitch, you can see there on the inside. So we're going to separate these 2 threads. This yarn is a little bit sticky because it's proper Norwegian wool, so it's a bit sticky, which means it has a bit of it grabs onto itself a little bit. So now we're going to weave in one end in one direction and the other end in the other direction. So I'm going to take it down here into a row of plain stitches. It is a bit difficult sometimes to weave in ends where you have the colour work. And pull this grey strand here kind of out of the way a bit. I'm also struggling to see this purple yarn. It's quite dark, and it doesn't help that I'm kind of leaning around my tripod. Okay, I think that's enough. So a few stitches in one direction, and then I like to just go back a couple of stitches. So I'll just go a row above or below, and just go back a few stitches like that, and then I can take that one out. I'll trim it in a minute, and then we'll take the other end and go in the other direction. It doesn't matter if you do it in a straight line or a diagonal line, but as long as you don't weave in the ends into the same area. So it's a good idea to take one end one way and another end another way, so they don't end up a bit kind of chunky, so you don't end up with like a patch that you can really feel, or worse, see. So we're going to go the other direction now. This yarn, I don't have to worry about it coming undone because, as I said, it is a bit sticky, not slippery at all. If you have a yarn that's slippery, you might want to go a little bit further before you turn and come back. I tend to do 6, 7, 8 stitches one way and then go halfway back again, unless it's a very slippery yarn or a very open fabric. Or loose tension where the yarn may come undone easier. Okay, so now I've trimmed it, left myself a couple of short ends, so let's just pop it back to the other side and make sure we can't see anything. Okay, so it's about there, about here. I can't even feel it. No, I can't feel anything, and I definitely can't see anything. So stitch is secure. It's not going to come unraveling, because if it had carried on unraveling, it would have gone all the way down to the cast on edge, and I would have been left with a hole there. So the hole's now gone and the stitch is secure, and if I was wearing this mitten, I could now wear it again. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have any questions, please ask them below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.